Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Who do we have here? Okay, we got Arthur. Welcome back, Arthur. Great to see you here. Um, we got Kristen, Bradford. Welcome, Kristen. Nice. Everyone's joining in. We'll get things started here. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Business of Aesthetics webinar, Future-Proofing Your Aesthetic Practice, the decisions you must get right in the next 18 months. I'm Don Adisha, and I am honored to host this expert panel with five incredible voices from marketing, clinical innovation, profitability, safety, training, and of course, business model transformation. So, tonight is not about chasing hype, it's about identifying the decisions that aesthetic practice owners must get right so that the next 18 months become a foundation for stability, growth, and long-term relevance. Now, before we begin, a few quick housekeeping notes to help you get the maximum of this session. First, yes, we are recording, and you will receive a replay link after the event in your email so that you can share with your partners and colleagues. But please do not let that make you passive. The real value is happening right here, right now, live. So use the Q&A button down below if you have any specific questions for the panelists, and use the chat to conversate with your colleagues here. I'll have my eye on both the feeds and weave in your questions and comments as we go along and keep it very engaging throughout the session. Now, before we do dive into the content, I do want to thank our sponsor for this session, Ekwa Marketing. Ekwa is the marketing growth partner trusted by aesthetic practices and industry leaders across North America and beyond for over 15 years. Their work focuses on three areas that matter deeply to our audience: SEO and visibility, so that your ideal patients can actually find you; conversion focused websites that turn those visitors into consultations; and content and social authority that builds trust before the patient ever walks into your clinic. Now, Ekwa is led by Naren Narul Raja, the very same founder of the Business of Aesthetics community. We'll be hearing from Naren momentarily and about Ekwa a little bit later as we go along. Right then, take a look at the flow of the program here tonight. First off, I'm going to start with the opening remarks as I actually closing it off right now. And then we will be doing a focused marketing session with Naren Arul Raja from 7:05 to 7:30, then from 7:30 to 8:50 EST. Of course, I know there are many who are from different time zones, so please adjust accordingly. And we will be opening the larger brainstorming session with Dr. Rivkin, Jessica Hunter, Sonia Ellis, and Jay Erazo. Then we will leave a few minutes for live audience Q&A at the end over there, but I'm thinking of pulling it back a little bit more towards, let's say, 8 p.m. We'll have a much more lively engagement session then with our audience to answer your questions and concerns. Then we'll be wrapping things out by 9 p.m. Of course, the pace will be practical and fast moving. It's going to be tight. So keep your questions coming in as we go along. Right then, let us begin. So we're going to begin with the marketing decision layer because patient demand is at the front door of future-proofing your practice. So the next 18 months will not just test whether a practice offers great treatments, it will also test whether the right patients can find your practice, trust it, and take action. So Naren will help us think through how aesthetic practices can build a smarter, more resilient marketing engine for this new window. Right then. First, we have Naren Arul Raja. As I mentioned, Naren is the founder of Business of Aesthetics and CEO of Ekwa Marketing, where he leads a 250 plus team helping aesthetic and healthcare practices build stronger online visibility, build stronger patient demand, and of course, long-term growth systems. Tonight, he will help us understand how practice owners can build a smarter, more resilient marketing engine for the next 18 months. With that being said, Naren, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Don. And of course, thanks everyone here, the attendees, the panelists. I think we're going to have some fun. We started the Business of Aesthetics group perhaps 5 years ago. We have the podcast, we have a Facebook group with 10,000 members. Of course, we have events on a regular basis. And the reason we started this is because we found there are a lot of people who are very passionate about the business side of aesthetics. There's a lot of training and communities on the clinical side, but not on the business side. So we wanted to become a place for people who are actively engaged in this whole industry and who want to share their ideas as well as learn from each other. So thank you everyone for being here. I'm really excited about the next 18 months because I think we are perhaps in unprecedented times. I know it feels like every day gets more complex and more challenging than the prior year or the prior decade. But it's just a fact, right? We know about AI. AI is changing marketing, changing how people find practices. AI is changing how people work. Of course, you have all the geopolitical and all kinds of rebalancing of the world and all kinds of things going on. So I know a lot of you are probably feeling uncertain. And I've seen similar things going back to 2008 when we had the recession. And I have noticed that the ones who lean into making their business strong, like classic example, Google itself. If you look at Google back then versus today, it's 20 times bigger. Why? They leaned in. Same thing with Apple. Anybody who leans in those tough times tend to come out on the other end much, 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 much stronger and bigger and more successful. I think this is a golden opportunity for practice owners who are looking to lean in, who are looking to turn a problem into an opportunity or this uncertainty into an opportunity. So I'm glad I'm here. Thank you so much, Don, and let's jump in.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that opening there, Naren. And what a great reminder that it's a cyclic process, right? So things have to get a bit challenging before it get better. So let's get on the right side of that equation. Now, Naren, what marketing decisions should aesthetic practice owners prioritize now if they want to stay competitive over the next 18 months?
That's a great question. I've been doing this for 19 years now as the CEO and founder of Ekwa Marketing. And today we work with 500 clients, and 90% of our clients never leave us. So I've learned the do's and the don'ts and what works and what doesn't. And I've been paying a lot of attention in the last 3 years because of all the transformation and all the changes that's going on. So one of the things I think aesthetic practice owners need to do if they want to position themselves in a strong, and come out stronger in 18 months is stop chasing volume. And let me explain. A lot of people, unfortunately, lean in on like deals and offers, and I know it might feel like it's working and it might feel tempting to do that, but the problem is it attracts the wrong kind of patients. I'm sure we all once upon a time heard of Groupon, but now it's non-existent, right? Why? The people who come for those deals are not really there to stay. They're not really loyal to you. They're not really coming because of you. They're coming because of some gimmick, and gimmicks usually don't last. So that's the first thing I would stop doing. And the reason I'm starting with something to stop doing is before you can build and become strong, you have to stop shooting yourself in the foot. So that's kind of one piece of tip that I would start with. And then, of course, focus on quality, right? Today, the beautiful thing is people have choices and everything is different because of tools like Google, right? I can go to Google and I can find a very specific type of sushi restaurant that serves South American, sushi, like, for example. Or like, I remember the days when we only had Benihana's, right? Like the only sushi place. But now there are so many kinds. Why? It's called long tail. We can look for exactly what we want, and Google will give us exactly what we need. It'll give us the business, the website, the reviews, everything. So figure out what are the things you want to be really good at and try to do well in those. In other words, when people are looking for those types of services that you want to do really well in, are you the one they're finding, not through ads, because we don't trust ads, but organically? So again, it doesn't have to be a list of 50 things. It could be a small list, but really, 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 really dominate in attracting that quality demand organically. The next thing is focus on the fundamentals, right? Like websites today is the gateway to how people discover you. It's also the gateway to how you communicate with Google. So, are you doing all the things that you are supposed to in terms of EEAT, Google Lighthouse Score, all the different technical things that make your website, shown or seen in Google, in ChatGPT, in all the different search engines. Same thing with the Google profile, right? The Google Business Profile or Google Maps. Is your profile optimized correctly so it keeps showing up? Most of these things are not one and done. It's something you have to keep investing in. So, like, focus on the fundamentals. Google reviews, again, really, really, really important. The way your phone is being answered. So, focus on the fundamentals. And then finally, make marketing measurable. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see practices making, and that's why the ones who are not doing well keeps going in circles. They don't know which marketing is working for them. Do you have call tracking? Can you like attribute every single new patient to the source? In other words, what marketing brought them in? Call tracking, landing pages, and this is so important. And it's unfortunate that many of the practices we start working with, they don't have this information. So they're spending 15,000, they don't know which of those $15,000 or $5,000 are working for them. So you really have to figure out what's working and what's not. So tracking becomes really important. And finally, I don't believe in overspending in marketing. I know practices who spend 10%, 15% of their revenues in marketing. So $1 million practice spending 100,000. Our clients, we recommend they only spend 2%. So of course, when you're spending 2%, which is 20,000 in $1 million versus 10%, which is 100,000, you're losing an extra $80,000 every single year. It adds up, right? When you do that for 10 years, that's $800,000. So always try to be very, very value driven. Find the lowest cost way to attract high quality patients. And of course, ads are not it. Ads usually a lot more expensive. So these are some of the mistakes I think you need to avoid. And these are some of the things I think you need to work on.
Check. So really focus in on the fundamentals, and then of course making that marketing measurable to ensure that you're not going in a loop of unprofitability. Thank you very much for that, Naren. And now, as patient expectations change, how should aesthetic practices adjust their marketing message?
Yeah, I think we all know when we buy something, we are buying outcomes. Somebody who's investing $50,000 or $100,000 in a beautiful kitchen, he wants or she wants her friends when they come over to have a great time and to comment how wonderful the kitchen is, right? That's the outcome she's buying. When somebody comes to you because they have a wedding coming up for their daughter and they want to look the best, they are buying that outcome. So you have to kind of show your clients or your potential clients you are good at providing those outcomes. So let's say I'm looking for certain keywords, like I've heard of Botox. Let's say I know that's a common example that we all can think of, and I want to go to that. When I go to that page, let's say you rank, and I want to go to the Botox page. When I go there, show me the kind of examples or cases where I can totally see the transformation. So sell outcomes, sell results, even Google reviews. I know a lot of people use automated tools to get Google reviews. Many of those reviews do not have any details, just 4 stars, 5 stars. On the other hand, the best practices ask happy clients to say why they love them. And those clients oblige and do that. And usually they are paragraph reviews. They'll talk about the transformation. They'll talk about the technology. They'll talk about the customer experience. So really, really highlight those, whether it's on your reviews, on your websites. And the other thing is, I think we are in the business of education. I mean, you are all here learning. And I think some of you will become our clients. And it's because, we educate, we add value, and you appreciate us for that, right? Same thing in your practice. When clients are on your website or in person, try to educate, whether they buy from you or whether they do business with you, give as much value as possible. Be honest, be straightforward. Talk in simple language that people can understand. Third tip I would share is, authority wins. In other words, you won an award, highlight it. We do all kinds of tests. And one of the things we noticed is same practice, same number of, dominant SEO positions for 100 plus keywords. But at the same time, when we added a graphic showing they won a particular award on their homepage, on the About the Doctor page, the conversions, in other words, the number of bookings went up. It almost went up by 70%. So show credibility, show authority, and highlight it. And of course, so I would even recommend in today's world, trying to create that authority, trying to win awards. So one of the things we have is called doctorschoiceawards.org. It's a free platform. Go there and find practices that are on Doctor's Choice Awards, and try to create your own practice, get other doctors to review it. If you win the most number of reviews in a particular town, you will win an award. You can highlight that award. I'm just giving you one example. This doesn't cost you a dime. So try to build authority where people genuinely appreciate you because you want something. um, Already talked about reviews, cases, testimonials, all those things. They are also proof that people are going to get the outcomes. Today, when people have choices, you have to show them you are really, really who you say you are. Not with your own words saying I'm really great, but rather with these reviews, these testimonials, these cases, or the before and afters. So those are the things I would do today, and that's how I would think about how I would approach my marketing.
Amazing. Just a quick follow-up there, Naren. So you mentioned with regards to having an award or some sort of authority signal in your own website, uh, raised their conversions even by 70%. That's a huge number. So I'm just curious, is that only patient expectations that have changed, or is it also part of the algorithm that has, or that is taking that into consideration?
Yes, definitely patient expectations have changed. If I have to choose, we are in the business of regret minimization, right? We go to a restaurant, we have a bad time, or we take our friends and they have a bad time. We regret that decision. So what do? We Google it, we try to look for the right kind of restaurants. Then we go to the website, we look at pictures, we look at the reviews, and then we are trying to, within a minute or two, quickly decide if this choice is going to give me the least regret. And we want to do this as quickly as possible. So these awards is a kind of a simple signal for most people that you must be good. Now, Google also realized this. I mean, we all know Google is the king. 95% of people, when they're looking for some local service, they go to Google, they learn about the service, they look at different choices, they read the reviews, and then pick the one they want to go with. So when I see, let's say you got qualified, with doing a certain course with the university, and you
Right.
highlight that in your bio, Google looks at something called EEAT, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. They rank you higher. Why? Because compared to everybody else around, you have that extra qualification. Even when you're an authority and you're featured on a website that's popular or on a TV show, then again, highlight that and do it in the way Google can understand that you are an authority. Again, I don't want to get into the technical details. So we have large teams of people who do this on a day in and day out basis. So make sure not only are you earning this authority, but you're leveraging it in a way that Google can reward you for it.
Amazing. Thank you very much for the clarification there, Naren. And I would also like to know if there are any other ways that Google, and local search is playing in future-proofing a marketing strategy.
Absolutely. It would be a miss if, I absolutely need to talk about AI search today. So today's
Oh,
search is regular search, something we have all been used to for the last 20 years. It's Google Maps, where you are showing up on local search, on a mobile device on the Google Maps product, or it's called AI overview or AI mode. So when I ask a question like, what is the cost of XYZ in a particular town? Google realizes I want Google to go and do the research and give me a summary. So give me, here is the range, here are the different types of options, and here are the sources where I got that information. That's called Google AI overview. So Google has incorporated AI overview into regular search. I want to give you some numbers and I want to talk about ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google. So Google today is used 12 billion times a day on the Google regular search side, and then on the map side 7 billion times. Now I know ChatGPT is very popular and it's used 800 million times a week or a couple of 100 million times a day. So when you compare 200 million to 12 billion, it's still like 60 times bigger, right? So whatever, even if ChatGPT doubles, Google is so big. I mean, that's why Google is worth close to $5 trillion today. It's the most valuable company behind NVIDIA. And everyone is saying Google probably will end up beating NVIDIA as the most valuable company on the planet. Why? Google has become so much stronger after AI came along. Their search volume is up like 20%, their revenue is up. I mean, they make $400 billion, 250 billion comes from ads. So I do think focus on Google, but do not ignore ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Gemini. So one of the things we do is we make sure our clients are ranking for at least 100 keywords and phrases within year one. I founded Business of Aesthetics with Jeff Richmond. He's ranking for 600 keywords and phrases. He's getting close to 60 new patient calls every single month. By the way, remember I talked about tracking? So track it with call tracking numbers. And one of the things you might notice is some of these calls are not getting booked. So figure out what your conversion rate is. Figure out what percentage of calls are getting missed. So you want to make sure every part of this marketing equation is solid. You showing up on Google, and also don't ignore ChatGPT. So for every one of our clients, every 3 months, we manually check, are they showing up on ChatGPT? Which keywords? How many? Same thing with Perplexity, same thing with Gemini, and continue to move that up. What I find is if you do everything Google wants, both for AI as well as regular search, you will do well in other places. Again, Google makes so much money from ads, so they don't really want to give you free traffic. So there's the haves and the have-nots. 3% of you will get 95% of the free traffic, while the others will get nothing. So you have to pay money in ads. Ads are 5 to 10 times more expensive, so I wouldn't recommend it. So you only should use ads in the short term as a startup, maybe for 6 months while your SEO builds up. SEO typically takes a year for you to dominate and for you to get 100 or more keywords ranking. And of course, track everything, right? So then you can say, I'm spending X dollars on this and I got 20 new clients. I'm spending, $5,000 on Google Ads and I only got 7. So you are like, okay, why am I spending $700 a new patient when I can get the same patient for like $50? So once you get the metrics as to what's driving your results, how much ROI you're getting, then you can adjust your budget accordingly. So I
Mm,
do think focusing on Google Maps. So I don't want to, do a whole masterclass on how to rank for 100 or more keywords on Google Maps, AI overview, and regular search. If anyone is interested, type in podcast and we'll send you the podcast where I go through this. And so that way you have a full 30, 40-minute description on all the things, you need to pay attention to.
that's right. Amazing. Thank you very much, Naren. And of course, before we move on to the next question, Naren, I just wanted to know if we optimize for Google, do everything that Google is saying to do, right? Um, does that also make us more visible on other platforms as well? Or is
Yeah.
that, yeah,
I mean,
go ahead.
the right thing is the right thing is the right thing, right? If you are an
Mm,
expert, every platform wants to surface experts versus not non-experts. So, if you use content generated by AI, nobody likes it because they know it's not you. It's some computer said something and it's not a reflection on you. So do not use AI generated content. You will get slammed. And the latest update that Google came up with in April completely will blacklist your website. So you will not even show up. So if you really,
mm,
really care about getting traffic, find out what is the right thing to do. And a lot of times, if you follow what Google is telling you, those are the right things. If your website doesn't load fast, why would somebody want to go to your website? Whether they found you through ChatGPT or Google, they wouldn't. So all the things that Google cares about, because they have the most number of people using it, 12 billion times a day, will automatically make you do extremely well. Many of our clients rank for 200, 300 keywords on Google on the top 10 results and are ranking for 70, 80 keywords in ChatGPT. Now, in terms of volume, Google still is like 50, 60 times bigger than the nearest competitor on the AI side. So definitely Google is like, focusing on Google will give you 50 to 60 times the output or the outcomes.
of course. But the right way is the right way, regardless
Yeah,
of the.
exactly.
Absolutely. Now, how can owners really avoid wasting money on marketing trends that do not support their long-term growth?
Yeah, I think a lot of owners don't think about marketing from a first principles perspective. What I mean is, what is marketing? Marketing is helping your ideal patients find you, right? First, they need to know that you exist and you can help them. Second, once they find you, helping them like you, because we don't do business with those we don't like. And finally, once they like you, getting them to trust you enough to give you a chance, start book that first appointment. That's what marketing is, and doing it 24/7, 7 days a week without you having to do a lot of work. So how do you do that? You show up for anything and everything to do with all the services you provide at the top of Google search results. 95% of our clients never leave us because once they get ranked for 100 or more keywords by end of year one, they continue to get better, 150, 200, and so forth. So you want to dominate. So in your local market, whatever I type in that you offer, you better be the one that I see again and again. That's helping people find you. Then helping people like you, simple videos, right? Short 45-second clips, welcoming people to that particular page, right? Remember, if I'm interested in XYZ, I only want to hear about XYZ. I don't want to hear about anything else. People today are like focused on what they want when they want it. Like if I want to eat poutine, that's a famous dish in Montreal, for example, and I know your restaurant has it. Talk to me about poutine because that's what I was looking for. Don't tell me about all the other stuff. Once I have had the poutine and you've answered all my questions, then talk to me about the other stuff. Same thing is in the web. Like give them the right information, the right cases, the right videos, so people really want to do business with you. Of course, don't forget Google reviews. Try to get 10 or more 5-star, what I call love letter, which is paragraph reviews every month. Again, if anyone is interested, type in reviews and we'll send you the playbook on how to get 10 or more 5-star love letter paragraph reviews. There's a method to the madness. None of this is easy, but if you can do it, you will have an unfair advantage. And finally, check your cost per lead. You need to track every call. You need to have call tracking. You need to have, AI to listen to these calls to tell you how many are new client calls, how many booked, how many didn't book from each one of those platforms. So then you can compare apples to oranges. If one lead or one new patient is costing you $50 and some of the new patient is costing you $300, why are you spending $300 when you can get the same new patient for $50? So tracking, and knowing what's working, what's not is so important. Finally, don't copy, don't do what other people are doing. It's disaster. It's kind of like, unlike, exams, we get the same exam paper, we all write the same exam. Business is different. People are different, so don't copy someone who you like or someone famous. Why? Because they might be putting a lot of ad money and they might have one strategy and you don't have the ad money. You don't have the 50,000 a month to put into ads. So you can't copy them and expect to win. So understand what's going on, if you have the time, learn the fundamentals of marketing and see, for example, if you like a particular website, see if it's ranking, type in those keywords and see if that particular website is showing up. If it's not, don't copy it. Duplicate content, shortcuts. These are all sure ways to, get killed and go into the, black box or the naughty box, so to speak. So don't do any of those things that look easy, look like a quick fix, but it'll come back to bite you. And
No. Yeah.
finally, take the long game, right? Get 10 reviews a month. Continue to make your SEO better and better over time. Continue to improve your landing pages. So don't play the short game. So those are the things I think you can do to avoid wasting money and to really position yourself as the leader in 18 months.
Check. Naren, now we have a lot of comments with the reviews keyword dropped in here on the chat and of course the podcast as well. So our team is getting you those links. And before we move on to the last question, Naren, I do have a question I would like to raise from one Arthur Vasquez. Arthur is asking, looking at companies that offer AI receptionists that will answer phones and book appointments, answer questions, especially after hours. Is this something Ekwa will be offering in the future?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. We, created an entire part of our company called Ekwa Labs. And the Ekwa Labs, the idea is to use AI as much as possible to solve problems. And one of those areas we are working on is AI receptionist, AI chat, AI conversation type tools, like for someone on WhatsApp or someone on Facebook to have a conversation with the practice. We are doing it slowly because two issues we are running into. One is people don't trust AI, but I understand for after hours, they are a little bit more receptive. And second, the technology is not totally there. So we are working on it. And these are things that we offer at no cost to our clients as we develop them. Why? Because, our clients make a commitment to us. And like I said, they stay with us for 10, 15 years. So we want to do everything in our power to make them successful.
Amazing. That's great innovation that's coming up on the Equa side. Now, time is tight on our event here. So the last question here for you, Naren, is, of course, what is a good next step for an owner listening in that wants to understand whether their current marketing can support the next 18 months of growth?
I would recommend what we call a marketing strategy meeting. It's our gift to you. It's a $900 value. The link is businessofesthetics.org/MSM. Team, if you can put the link, that'll be awesome. What we do is we look for everything I just talked about. How are people finding you? Like how many keywords are you ranking for? What are those keywords? Are you in the top 10, top three? So when we look at this, we know how well you are doing today in helping people find you. Because if nobody can find you, you are invisible, you're not going to do well. So you know the answer. That's the first thing to fix. We'll also look at your top three competitors and say, how are they doing? Like, are they in the, club of dominating and you are like really, really bad, or is everyone bad? So you want to know where things stand. Of course, if everyone is bad, you have an opportunity to totally dominate. Even if they're somewhat good, what we find is very, very few practices when we start working with them, not even like 1%, rank for 100 or more keywords. So there's a huge opportunity for you to get into that, 3%, the top 3% that dominates a market by showing up again and again and again for all kinds of search terms. The second thing is the landing pages. Now, let's assume you're ranking. We'll review your landing pages. Do they have the right kind of videos, the right kind of before and after? We talked about EEAT to position yourself as an expert. Are you using those techniques? And finally, we'll tell you the root cause. So let's say you are not ranking. Is it NAP? Is it Lighthouse Score? Is it, CRUX? Again, I said for those who are interested, type in the word podcast and we'll send you the podcast about how to dominate Google and how to dominate internet marketing. So those are the things we'll do. We'll give you a report card versus your competitors and how you are doing on all the components of success, that is finding you, people liking you, and people choosing you. Also, we'll give you an action plan. Like, okay, the reason you're not doing well is your NAP needs work. And here is what's going on with your NAP. These are the things we would do in the next 12 months for you to get into that top 3%. So that's the report card and the action plan. It's our gift to you, businessofesthetics.org/MSM. Hope you take that information, whether you work with us or not, at least you know what you need to do if you want to use the next 18 months to create that unfair advantage, create that, long-term win.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that, Naren. And of course, to our attendees here, make the best use of this opportunity. Of course, a question you might be asking, is this worth my time? An hour dedicated to having this meeting. And really put it into perspective, there's no obligation whatsoever, and that hour is the only thing you're going to risk. However, by not making that commitment, by not showing up at the meeting, you're just allowing your competitors to keep on showing up whenever your ideal clients are searching for the treatments that you are offering. So make the best use of this opportunity. Thank you very much, Naren, for that wonderful presentation and this offer. With that being said, we'll be moving on now.
Thank you. Thank you and I wish everyone an awesome presentation.
Amazing. Right. Now we are going to move into the larger brainstorming session here. Right. How to win in the next era of aesthetics. We have 4 expert lenses coming together. Do we have 4? Yep. We got 4. Let's see, because because with clinical innovation, business profitability, team and safety manage systems, also along with one of leaders from tech to ensure that you have tech-enabled business models going forward. Now, the goal is not for everyone to agree on every trend, right? The goal is really to help you make better decisions with more informed and value-driven content. So let's see. Let's meet our panelists for this session here. Right. So first up, we got Dr. Alexander Rivkin. Dr. Rivkin is a Yale-trained facial cosmetic surgeon and an international authority on non-surgical cosmetic treatments. He is known for advancing non-invasive alternatives to traditional procedures and, of course, bringing a global clinical lens to what treatment categories will matter that may be overhyped, and how owners should de-risk innovation before investing. Now, Dr. Rivkin has given us a quick update. He is currently treating an urgent patient that just started a couple of minutes ago before the event started. So we're not sure exactly when he'll be joining in, but we do hope we get a bit of Dr. Rivkin as we go along. But do not worry, we have other great panelists who are going to cover in the meantime. And speaking of another great panelist, Jessica Hunter. Jessica is the founder and CEO of Hunter Consulting, a medical aesthetics business consultancy with an MBA in entrepreneurship and a bachelor in kinesiology. She brings a strong mix of financial strategy, human performance, and hands-on clinical operational experience. Tonight, she is going to help us translate growth into profitability, KPIs, and enterprise value. Jessica, great to have you here on the panel.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Fantastic. Right. And next up, we have one of our, well, community favorites, I would say, Sonia Ellis. Sonia is a highly respected plastic surgery and aesthetic nurse, educator, entrepreneur, co-founder, lead injector, and head trainer at the Lab Med Spa in South Lake, Texas. She brings decades of experience in safety, clinical education, injector development, and consistent patient outcomes. Sonia, great to have you back here on the Business of Aesthetics panel.
Nice to see everybody.
Absolutely. And then rounding out the panel over here, we have Jay Erazo. After more than 25 years leading digital transformation in tech, Jay has turned his attention to the aesthetic med spa industry. And as the founder of Advancing Aesthetics and advisory board member of Cloud Med Spas, he's helping rethink traditional overhead, fixed leases, staffing structures, and scalable platforms for the next era of aesthetic practice ownership. Jay, great to have you on the panel here.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Let's get into this discussion. So my first question will go out to you, Jessica. You have worked with over 200 clinics. From that perspective, what are the key financial KPIs that aesthetic practice owners should be tracking weekly or monthly if they want to truly make an impact on their business decisions?
Well, I think when we're talking about KPIs, we have to really clearly define what we're trying to track. So first and foremost, key performance indicators, KPIs, there's sort of two different kind of, avenues I like to kind of separate them to. And the very first one that we really need to understand that I think is lacking a lot in this industry is just our basic financial, metrics and measures that we should be looking at every single month. And so when I say that, that's first and foremost really understanding the basics. What is your service breakdown every single month for every service that you offer? So that's the percentage of the one service that you do to the total revenue you do within that month. You need to know that. Sounds really basic. You would be beyond surprised. To be able to work with me, one of the things I ask from my clients, it's a no contest, no conversation, is that they have to be able to disclose their entire EMR to me and their entire QuickBooks or Akira or whatever they use in terms of their expenses. I cannot help what I cannot see or do not know. So that's the very first thing. So that's the kind of thing that we're going to look at just in a really basic understanding. Where is the business coming from? The second thing you want to look at when you're talking about your financial KPIs is really understanding your expense breakdown ratios. I call it sort of your six things, your CPOOM, right? So your cost of goods, your payroll, your overhead, your operational, and your other category. Lastly, marketing. And you want to look and take your expenses and actually put them in those categories and understand what is the ratio to the revenue I generate. Not how much are my cost of goods, how much are my payroll. It's how much is my payroll to the revenue I actually generate. That percentage margin is so impactful to understand your business. And if you don't know those for your business in the last 3 years, I really, really encourage you to. It will allow you to make so much more informed decisions than just there's a new device on the market, or, my neighbor down the street is selling Botox for $10 a unit, or whatever the sort of scenario that you're sort of using to justify why you're doing things in your business. So when I talk about KPIs, I want to take it that step back. Start with your
Right.
financial understanding of your business, first and foremost.
Mhm.
Then you can go to like actual KPIs that happen in a service-based business, right? And that
Mhm.
happens with our providers, right? We're a service-based business. So the number one KPIs you should be looking at after your financials is really your service providers. So it's how much revenue they generate, what is their average transaction per service category, right? Average transaction per service category, super, super important. And then utilization, number of hours versus the number of hours booked. Those are just the three basic ones when you're looking at your service providers that you need to understand 110% to make better decisions for your business. This is, do I need
Mhm.
more people? This is how much am I paying them? Are they working enough hours? Are they working too many hours? And are they a productive provider in my practice? So that's where I start with for all of those things.
Amazing. I'm just curious there, Jessica, do you have a good benchmark for us, like with regards to the ratios um, of expenses to revenue by each category, or is that dependent on the practices?
God, yes, of course there are benchmarks, definitely. I'm a believer in really understanding your own and benchmarking it accordingly, only because we
Okay.
have so many different variations in the business in terms of, are we also doing plastics? Do we actually have a mix of weight loss or wellness, right? That really changes the dynamic in terms of profit and profit margin. So there are a couple of things. Are we in a state where we have we don't have RNs, we have NPs doing our injectables. So there are quite a few different sort of caveats you really need to understand your business. I'll give you one that I think is really important. And again, we only have two line items that we really can impact. And there are two biggest line items, right? They're cost of goods and payroll. And so when we look at payroll, we look at our entire team, right? Our entire support team, providers, owners, marketers, if they work within the business, whatever it is, we look at all of them. We look at all of our payroll taxes, right? We look at all of our health benefits, anything like that that we're also contributing to our staff. And then that margin typically I see is between 35 and 40%.
Mm.
Ideally, we would like to be by 30 and 35%. And so that is to your total revenue you generate. And so that's always the goal that you're trying to get to. Most likely, most of the people that are joining in right now are probably between 35 and 40%. And so that's kind of your very first thing. If you kind of do the math and you're taking a look at that and you're like, holy crow, she's right. I'm at 38% of my total revenue goes to payroll. Then that is something that would be the first thing I would take a look at is how you're paying for productivity, experience, and expertise.
Check. Thank you very much for that great opener there, Jessica. And of course, sharing those very practical benchmarks with us. Now, Dr. Rivkin is on the call. Doctor, I
Sorry
hope
about
your
that.
procedure went well. No worries, no worries.
Yeah.
That's what we like to have, a real practical, hardworking doctor, um, on our panel. So everyone knows that this is real. Of course. Now, Dr. Rivkin, non-surgical technology is evolving faster than most practices can absorb. In the next 18 months, which treatment categories do you believe that owners must invest in to stay relevant, and which ones are overhyped and should be avoided?
Well, I mean, I think so. Of the technologies that are emerging now, the how do I put it? Um, the regenerative kind of technologies are the ones that are, I think, interesting. And I think as they develop and as more science and more data comes in about these technologies, I think they will become more and more interesting. Right now, it's pretty early. And we're still kind of, the growth factors, the PDRN, PDGF, all this stuff is very new. And even though people are adopting very, very quickly, peptides, all that kind of stuff. They're adopting sometimes based on not very much scientific data and real kind of, real understanding of what's going on. So I think that I'm conservative about adopting these stuff until I'm really, sure about what the data shows and how to adopt these technologies optimally. Now, but that stuff, there's not a ton of risk involved in adopting those kinds of technologies. When you're talking about lasers, then that is a different category because now you're being offered a prospect of spending a whole bunch of money to purchase a technology which may or may not work. Now, I mean, no, sorry, I'm not saying for you. I'm saying may or may not work for you. Now, there's just because so that there's so to me there's a few rules, right? Just because Kim Kardashian did it doesn't mean it's going to work in your practice, right? So there's certain technology. I mean, these days it's a pipeline, right? You develop a laser, you pay whatever the hell Kim Kardashian charges to have her get that laser done in her skin, and then you get it, and then it takes off. That doesn't necessarily translate to it being an effective or a more effective than old technology kind of thing. Number one. Number two, never trust anything a laser rep says, including what color the sky is, because there's no rules in lasers. There's rules in pharma, right? They can't lie to you outright lie to you. There's no rules as far as I know in lasers. They can say whatever they want. And so everything needs to be verified. And I've been screwed, a number of times about that. And so all of this stuff about like, oh, the price is this, but look, all you need is this many in a month and you'll clear it easily. Look at these accounts. They've cleared it easily. Bullshit. All of it is bullshit. It is look at the consumables. You have to look at consumables. You have to look at the price. You certainly never finance with a laser company because they'll screw you in other ways. And you have to really look skeptically upon this stuff. And the technologies, I'm not a laser expert, for example, or I'm not as much of a technology expert as I am with a filler expert. And so the technologies that I think about adopting, I always run through my trusted experts. So I'll pick up the phone and I'll say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And they'll give me an honest answer because we have a relationship that way. So I think those are important things. I think that as far what I'm not seeing that I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but I'm not seeing as much talk about threads these days as I used to. So I don't know how that's going. I think that the excitement about threads has cooled a little bit to kind of a plateau. And then, I mean, toxins and the other thing about that people need to remember is the big companies involved in toxins and fillers, um, you are to some degree their client as a provider, but not really, because where they really are loyal to is their stockholders. And so with those companies, they need to make sure that the stockholders are happy first and foremost. And so they will put out new products and have pipeline because not necessarily because these products are going to be revolutionize aesthetics, but because these products, you can say that you have this long pipeline and this long R&D, fruitful R&D arm, and therefore that the investors should invest in you and give you more money. So just keep that in mind when you think, oh, maybe this new product that just came out, or this new toxin, or this new filler just came out.
Mhm.
It's new, so therefore it must be better than anything else. It's not necessarily true.
Check. Appreciate that, Dr. Rivkin. I mean, yeah, biggest takeaway from there for me is really getting yourself a group of trusted experts, right? That you can consult with on
Yeah.
all these new that's the way to go. And really, for everyone listening in, we have a wonderful community of over 10,000 followers on our Facebook group. It's a group. So after this session, go on and check us out. We are having great conversations there as well. And that can be your first line of defense when it comes to new tech. Throw it in there, see what everyone else has to say. kind of evaluate it, get a second opinion there. Business of Aesthetics on Facebook is how you will find us. My next question goes out to you, Sonia. Now, staffing is one of the biggest existential crises for aesthetic practices. How should owners think about building an internal injector training and development pipeline instead of constantly recruiting from a shrinking open market?
Yeah, so I've always trained from within, and I think that's how everybody should do it. I started a mentorship program, and so I'll try and go through that a little bit with you guys so that y'all can hopefully implement it in your practices. But building an internal injector training and developmental pipeline is what is going to get you through. It's better than recruiting because, there are companies that's all they do now is they recruit. But what I found is there's no injection interview. There's no way to truly vet these injectors, and you get them into your practice. We all know that salaries have gone up, and neurotoxin is down about 5%. Dermal filler is down about 10 to 15% right now. So they're wanting this astronomical amount of money, but they're not bringing it in, and that's what you're going to find. Usually, when you go through a recruiter, is they want this big salary, but then they can't back it up. And then my other one is you want to start earlier than you think you should. So when one of your injectors gets about 50% booked, you can get them an MA that will make them more effective in your office. Once they're 75% booked, once they're 50% booked, you can think about adding another injector into your practice. But of course, you don't want to pay another injector. That's where the mentorship program comes in. We'll get into that later on in this session. But you're going to start training that one. And then once that other one is 75% booked, that's when you're going to hopefully have the other one trained and they can just take up, where the other one has left off. You want to build a formal apprenticeship model. You can't just like wing it. You can't just be like, oh, we're going to learn this today. Literally every single week for a year, there has to be diligence in what you're training these people so that you don't skip anything. Just like you have a consultation form with your patients, you need to have a training contract with your injectors or any technician that's in your office. I'm going to be talking about injectors because that's what I do, but of course you could use this model for anything in your practice, correct? And then if you can, you want to make your office a training hub. Like we have 1,000 square foot training facility upstairs in our 4,000 square foot building, and we train people all the time. Now, you want to tie development to compensation, or you're just giving them that opportunity to become an injector if they haven't, if they're just interested in it. And it's something that they want to also learn while they're staying at the hospital. Because I will not take a nurse that has not been in the hospital for at least 3 years, actually being a real nurse before she decides to come and do aesthetics. Not that we're not real nurses in aesthetics. I just need you to know how to handle even anything in our office if it happens, right? And then finally, you want to protect yourself legally. So when I start a brand new nurse injector in my office, if she has absolutely no skills at all and she's coming to me absolutely fresh, I'm going to make her sign a 3-year contract, a training contract, and I can prove that I'm going to give her this amount of training in 3 years. So if they leave me in the first year, they owe me 30 grand. If they leave me in the second year, they owe me 20 grand. And if they leave me in the third year, they owe me 10 grand. And that is going to hold up in court. Your little non-competes are not going to hold up in court. You cannot stop somebody from working. So I have found that this program works really well in my office. Luckily, none of my nurse injectors have left me yet, but all of the mentors that have come through my program, they've either gotten a good job or I have kept them.
Well, amazing.
I hope that
And
answered the
really,
first question.
of course, it's really an investment that you're making internally, as well as you also have those, what to say, safety levers, so that that ensures that the quality of injectors internally, they don't go outside and they don't become your biggest competitor. And if they do, to each their own,
Well, if
they'll
they
pay you.
leave, they're going to leave me after 3 years. And at that point, I have gotten my money's worth of them.
Exactly.
So at that point, I'm not going to be as mad. Like, what you don't want is you want to train somebody up for a year and then they leave you before you can recoup your finances. All I'm asking is to recoup my finances.
That's it. And three
Yeah.
years is all intake.
That's a fair fight. And here in Texas, we call it, we want to keep one in the chamber. Yeah, because we like guns around here.
Absolutely.
You got to keep one in rotation, you know?
Right on. Thank you very much for that, Sonia. And we will
You're
definitely
welcome.
get to mentorship as we move along. Now, Jay, the traditional med spa model, high overhead, fixed leases, rigid staffing is under real pressure. What signals should a practice owner watch for in their own P&L to know whether their current model is still viable or quietly becoming obsolete?
So, well, first of all, interesting conversation and amazing points. And the funny thing is that a lot of what is being mentioned doesn't really pertain to me in our business model. So I own a medical spa, but it's not a traditional medical spa. It's a cloud med spa. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, how we run it, and what makes it so different. But the premise behind our concept and our model is that we see the aesthetic industry as changing and moving
Mhm.
very, very fast. And we see the fastest growing segment inside of aesthetics is the solo independent practitioner.
Yeah.
We feel that the current model, the med spa model, is I would say almost somewhat broken, and we think we have a way of fixing it. And I'll give you an example. So my particular cloud med spa located here in Chicago, we've been open for 2.5 years. And I have 31 nurses. I have RNs, NPs, PAs, 2 doctors that are part of my practice. They pay me a monthly membership fee to be part of my practice. I provide them with a mobile app. That app allows them to rent rooms, to rent devices, and to buy product from me. So during this conversation, I've heard about marketing, cost of marketing, and Google, and trying to get you ranked high. I don't deal with patient acquisition. The 31 practitioners that are part of my practice, that's their responsibility. They're the ones that go out there and find their own patients. Um, I don't have any HR issues because they're not my employees. Um,
Mhm.
Basically, they use that mobile app and then they reserve rooms by the hour. They can reserve a whole day, half day. They can, however they want. We talked about the lasers from the doctor. They're expensive. They, those devices can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have 3 devices, and so I have 30 nurses that rent those devices from me. They buy the consumable from me, but they see their own patients. So what we're trying to do is break down the barrier of entry. So if a nurse or any aesthetic practitioner wants to go independent, you know, previously they only had 2 choices: work for a traditional med spa, get a percentage cut, or they had to go out and open up their own medical spa and incur, thousands of dollars of
Yeah.
upfront financial costs, sign, leases. Well, now in our
Mhm.
model, instead of going out and building your own med spa, they just plug into one. They access one and they access my med spa. And then they don't have to sign any lease. There's no contracts. They can come and go as they want. Um,
Mhm.
I don't have any agreement, whether it's like a non-compete. So they come
Mhm.
in, they see their own patients. And see, this is what we also feel that the aesthetic practitioners, we feel that they are the ones that own the relationship with the patient, not the logo, not the med spa. So if the top injector decides they want to leave and go across town, we think that probably 80-90% of their client base will follow them. Unfortunately, they're
Mhm.
not going to sit around and say, okay, I'll just take the next injector that's up and let that person, inject me. No, the aesthetic provider builds a relationship. They're the ones generating the revenue. They create patient loyalty. They're the ones that drive retention. They're the ones that are actually growing the business. So when they leave, most likely the patients will leave with them. So in
Mhm.
my model, these nurses that come and work in my practice already have a book of business. And so I don't deal with marketing costs. I don't deal with any type of split, any HR, any, we were talking about, you know, payroll taxes, because I'm more of a rental model. So I have all my rooms, and they have access to the rooms, the products, and again, the devices.
Okay.
That's my model.
Wow. That's definitely an interesting model there, Jay, and a lot of the things you mentioned there, um, it's really interesting. It's very refreshing, to be honest, to hear this, and I'm, I feel like a lot of our attendees agree that this is a concept or a way to solve the problem that is not very popular, right? Because when we,
And you don't have to go to a full cloud med spa. You could be a traditional medical spa, because I've talked to
okay,
a lot of med spa owners. Some of them have, one or two treatment rooms that sit idle, a better part of the day. So that, open or unused treatment room, that could be utilized by, five nurses that have their own patients that come in and pay you to utilize that space, pay you to use devices. For example, I've got 3 skin pens. So instead of a nurse spending $10,000 on a brand new Elite skin pen, they pay, $50 to use it for the hour. And then they buy the consumable, they rent the room, and then they see their patient, and then boom, they're gone. That's it. They don't have to sign a lease for a contract. They don't have to buy a $2,000 chair. They don't have to buy supplies. All that is provided by me. So again, I have 31 nurses. Think about that. Our corporate headquarters is in Boston. That location has 14 treatment rooms, and there's about 120 nurses utilizing that space. It's also a community. So, a nurse can obviously go to a salon loft or one of those places and set up shop by their own, but then they're on an island. In my world, they become part of the community. There's also a group purchasing program. So the nurses, instead of having to buy, make their initial order of, Dysport, Xeomin, Daxi, whatever it is, they don't need to buy in stacks of 10. They can buy simply one from me from the app, because I'm buying it in a group. They also get
right.
The group purchasing discount. Yeah, so that is what we're saying, is that we think that the model is changing. We think that there was a recent conference, the Stripe FinTech conference in San Francisco, and at that conference, and I sat through portions of it, they were talking that the fastest growing part of our economy is solopreneurship. And we think that extends into the aesthetic world. These nurses that, in our opinion, own the patient relationship, they already can just simply pivot and begin seeing their own patients, and then do it in a place like ours where they don't have to sacrifice, or financial burden, put their family in danger. They can simply plug in and then do what they do best.
Right. Thank you very much, Jay, for that really refreshing take on the current issues that we're facing in the industry. To everyone who was just listening in to Jay's, please do share your thoughts. I'm really curious to hear, what y'all had to say, because it's, to me, it's one of the most innovative ways to really address a lot of this overhead issues, a lot of understaffing, and better utilization of a room that you might have to spare. So then let us know your thoughts in the chat box. Now, Dr. Rivkin, you've pioneered procedures like the non-surgical nose job. When a new device or injectable hits the market, what is your personal framework for deciding whether it is real innovation and is worth bringing into the practice, or a shiny new object that'll lose ROI in 12 months? Over to you, Doc. Oh, you're muted there. Go ahead.
There we go. Okay, good. Better? You can hear me?
Yes, that's
Okay.
better.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I was talking about in the last, what we were saying before about how there's technologies that are coming out. regenerative technologies, there's laser technologies and all this kind of stuff. You have to be really careful about what you're going to adopt and, and how you're going to do it, right? So and the other thing though that I think you need to be aware of, and I think that this is quite important, is who you are and who your
Mm-hmm.
patient base is, right? And you have to have a fairly an accurate understanding of what that is. So if you're thinking about getting, let's say, a CO2 laser, and you're like, and if you have a practice like mine where I have extenders, and I have people that are doing lasers, and I just generally do injectables, and I have RNs and NPs and PAs doing laser stuff. I need to really have a good picture in my mind of what they're comfortable with and who they are, and
Mm-hmm.
also who the patients are. Because when I'm acquiring technologies, I don't want to acquire a big badass, CO2 laser and then have it sit in a corner because everybody's scared to use it, right? Or I don't want to acquire this big CO2 laser and then have patients who mostly, I'm in LA, they don't want downtime, they're in front of the camera. What they really want is something that doesn't have that's more gentle, doesn't have downtime. They'd rather come in more sessions. So you have to understand really well who your clientele is and who you guys are as well. So that's, I think, quite important. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
I never want to jump in. I want to have
Mm.
I really need to have trusted advisors. I'm never jumping in into, because there's a whole thing that reps will tell you, oh, come in now because you'll be the first one and you'll make tons of money because you'll be the first one offering this treatment. Yeah, I don't
Right.
want to do that. I don't want to be the first one offering this because yeah, maybe I will get that, like, oh, he's got the new technology. He's the guy with the new technology. But if something goes wrong, you really, all it takes is one patient who's really has a problem to really have an issue within your practice. So I don't want to, I like to sleep well at night. I don't want to be the one that's jumping on technologies.
That's very interesting. When you pioneered the non-surgical nose job, let's take that for an example, right? I'm just curious as to when was the risk worth it? When after having consulted with your trusted advisors, understood your team,
Oh,
clientele, when were you
that
comfortable with the
Nah,
risk?
that's an exception. Now so when I started doing noses, it was in 2004, right? I had
Okay.
just come out of residency. I just come out of surgical residency because my training is head and neck
Mm,
surgery. And I just come out of residency. I was doing I was doing laryngectomies and neck dissections and all sorts of crazy stuff. So
okay.
injecting a little bit of filler into the nose did not get me that worried. And we
Mm,
didn't know also, we didn't know how dangerous a spot to inject the nose was at the time. So,
oh,
ignorance is bliss. It's
that's
only
right.
not until later that we were like, oh, maybe the nose is you got to be a little bit careful with the nose. Once these cases of blindness and other things started to come out, ischemia, necrosis, stuff like that.
Mm,
So really it was instinctual. I was just like, okay, here's a patient who I could I could save this person an operation,
mm,
with an injection. And
mm.
it's easy and it takes 5 minutes and they don't have to go through the trauma, they don't have to go through the downtime, they don't have to go through the risk of going under anesthesia, going and doing what is probably one of the most complex operations we do, which is surgical rhinoplasty. And if I can save them all that with a 5-minute filler procedure, I mean, it'd be unethical not to. So I just started doing a bunch of these and it took off. But yeah, it was kind of, yeah, I didn't need to consult anyone because there was nobody doing it at the time. Like nobody. So
There. And of course, as you mentioned, ignorance is bliss.
ignorance is
And
bliss.
during that time, you might have just felt you just didn't know what you didn't know, what you know now. And of course, like you mentioned, that's a great example. You can save an operation with an injection. That's the time to go. That's kind of the risk to reward ratio that at least Dr. Rivkin is comfortable in taking, and is a good way to go about things. Um, Now, Jessica, with cost rising across labor, products, and rent, what is the single most overlooked profitability lever you have helped clinics pull in the last 12 months that does not require raising prices or cutting staff? I'm curious about this one too.
Well, of course not, right? Heaven forbid we ever do either one of those things. So I think one thing, again, just like getting the full picture for everybody who's sort of the individual in terms of what their own goals are and what they want to accomplish is,
Hmm.
what are they trying to do? Because that does really depend when we talk about profitability. So, for example, if we're looking to potentially sell our business in the next 2 to 3 years, then how we're going to take a look at profitability will be very different than we're just trying to grow and scale to multiple locations or do different things. So when you talk about how to increase profitability today, you are looking at some of the things in your business that are acting as constraints right now and identifying them for sure,
Mhm.
100%. If we're talking about adding in services that are more profitable that allow you to sort of collect cash so that you can be able to expand and grow in terms of marketing or retention efforts, then that's sort of a different thing. But again, if you want to sell your business, you have to be really mindful of that. So for example, if you're looking to sell your business in 24 months, right? 2 years, that's your goal. You would like to be able to do that. You'd like to be able to have a really profitable business to do that. Adding on and having, 80% of your revenue come from weight loss is not going to allow you to do that. It is just too volatile and it's too much risk for a buyer. So when we talk about profitability, about like things that we want to do, like I said, it kind of always comes back to like, what is that long-term goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And so if we kind of just want to think about what are we going to do today to increase profitability in our business, you have to really understand, I think, two things. One is strategic pricing, and one is how you pay your staff. That's really
Mhm.
what we have to deal with if you're not really changing anything currently in the operations of your business. So strategic pricing is not about decreasing your pricing. It's about adding value to things so you have more demand for, right? And so it's
Mhm.
about being really strategic on that. It's not just lowering your pricing for patient acquisition. It's understanding what is attracting someone to come into your clinic and making sure that they are staying for multiple times within a year to see you for different services. So it is
Mhm.
always about how are we attracting and retaining our clients, because I will tell you right now, the clinics that are very profitable are those that have clients that are coming in multiple times a year, every single client, and they're doing combination treatments. Those are by far the most profitable clinics right now because people want to come in for an optimal outcome in the least amount of time that they don't have to go under the knife. That's what there is. So, and then the second piece, like I said, is really understanding how we're paying our team. It's not about paying our team less. It's really about making sure that we're actually paying on how productive and how profitable they are. So the time that they spend
Mhm.
and the services that they're actually performing in. So that's kind of a really quick and dirty, hopefully roundabout way to answer your question.
Definitely not dirty, but what a efficient way to answer that question. And now, as you mentioned over there, what I'm really understanding is clients are really interested in getting that optimal outcome, right? And breaking it down into multiple sessions, multiple treatments, and then really explaining that. Now, I was just curious, a quick follow-up question to that with regards to that strategic pricing, would you agree of raising your prices until the point like of when patients might just drop off? Is that how you would
No, not
approach
necessarily. Like
pricing, or
here's
else
a
is it
really good
market
example of
driven?
it, right? I mean, again, your pricing is going to dictate your experience, your expertise, and your value. And so it's not necessarily that we're trying to decrease pricing for acquisition because that's not necessarily maybe the kind of patient you want coming through your door. But strategic
Hmm.
pricing can look like something different. So, for example, someone comes to see you for neurotoxin, that's our gateway drug, right? It's a lot of our acquisition service in terms of someone new trying and having a really positive experience with us. And then we say, hey, if you're going to book in 2.5 months, right here and right now for your next service, maybe
Hmm.
it's less expensive, right? Because we're trying to build the retention. Because actually, what makes us money is not that one time service, it's the repeat and consistency of someone coming back over and over again. So that's one way you can do it. Another way again is volume, right? So ensuring that we're going to get the optimal volume for that one service. And that's where the pricing can also be different too.
Check. Thank you very much for that, Jessica. And I do want to, I think there was a member in the audience. Jill is asking to have Jessica's website. Our team will circle back there, Jill. And of course, I do want to remind our audience in a couple of, I'd say two more questions. Yeah. We'll get into questions that you have. So line them up, drop them in the chat, or it's much more better if you can drop them in the Q&A button because the chat gets a bit hectic from time to time. But yeah, drop your questions in because you know what? We don't want you to leave this webinar thinking, oh, I really wish I had asked that question. That is one thing that we don't want you to deal with. Not tonight. So go ahead and ready your questions, line them up, drop them in, and we will ensure that we will get to them. Right. Sonia, now as the head trainer, what specific clinical skill gaps or unsafe habits are you seeing most often that newer injectors right now? And how should owners really address those before that becomes a liability, complication, or even a retention issue?
The big thing that we're seeing because we're a training facility is that it's so hard to get a good job in aesthetics. I think that's probably why Jay started his model. But my problem with that model is that people just go and take a weekend course and then they start their practice. And I've been doing this for 25 years. And
Mm,
look, Dr. Rivkin had a bad day today. He had a patient with an emergency. So a weekend course we know is not enough. Starting your own practice straight out the gate is, in my opinion, not the right way to do things. And so
mm,
what I'm seeing is product knowledge and anatomy knowledge is not there because
mm,
a weekend course cannot dive far enough into it. And when I started 25 years ago, we had Juvederm Ultra Plus, and we had silicone, and we had Cosmoplast, which is Artiplast, and then it's now Bellafill, but like whatever. So there's 7 neurotoxins on the market now. And us as older injectors, some of us get mad at the newer injectors and we're like, why don't you know your stuff? Well, if we had had that many products when we started, would we have known what to do in that first year? That first year, we're pretty much putting a fire hose in their mouth and we're like, drink. There's no way for them to drink from that fire hose. And so we have to be slower with this, and we have to teach slower, and we have to be more patient, and we have to give them smaller snippets so that they will really be able to retain it. And that is why I think it's really important for us to train an injector over a year, not just for a weekend, and just let them go out and touch people's faces because as Dr. Rifkin said, things can happen. We didn't even know about vascular occlusions, back in 2014. We didn't even know what they were. So we've come a long way. I just want to teach people better than what we were taught, right? So I want them to know, second, selection logic. Why are you picking that product? Why are you putting in the patient's face? Do you know the rheology of that product? Is it going to look good there? Do you know what the patient has had before? Are they going to play in the sandbox with each other? These are
mm,
all the things that are so important. And if you don't know your stuff, you can get into some really sticky situations, right? Third
yeah.
is this is what owners need to hear, is what I tell everybody is um, when to say no. The newer injectors just don't know when to say no because they don't know what they're looking. They do not realize that they're looking at a big red flag. I had a mentee in the room with me yesterday, and at the end of this consultation, I looked at her and I said, "Would you touch that patient?" And she was like, I mean, like during the headlights, she just didn't know. And I was like, no, we're not touching that patient. We're not even almost touching that patient, right? And then I proceeded to go through her with the red flags of what she needs to be looking for in order to not get into sticky situations, because they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And that's not something that you're going to learn in a weekend course, right? And then you do want to build a structured membership tier in your office. So you can train an injector all day long. We all know that patients are usually going to be very loyal to an injector, not the practice. So when the injector leaves, the patients will normally leave with that injector. It is very
Mm,
important for you as an owner to do a membership program so that that patient will be locked into you for at least a year. That means
mm,
they have to try a different injector because they're already locked into a membership with you. If they have to try that new injector, what's the chance that they're going to stay? Because that other injector is good too. They don't want to change. They don't want to drive to a new place. You'd be surprised. I'm just saying, look into it. Sorry, I'm
oh,
out of
of
time.
course. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that, Sonia.
I was trying to
But
talk really fast.
oh yeah, I mean, I was writing real fast too over here. You know, I was like, wow, Sonia is really going on this one. But amazing points there. And with regards to that last one, I really appreciated with the structured membership program in our office to really offset that issue of, injector leaving and how are we going to address all the patients that are going to go with them,
Yeah.
right?
So Catherine said she would love to have had a mentorship program like me. She looked for 5 years. Catherine, I
Right.
get it, honey. This is why I'm talking about it more. This is why I'm sending all my paperwork, my contracts. I will give you everything for free if you will just do it in your office, okay? So I'm coming, Catherine. I'm coming. And then Karen says Texas allows non-medicals to eject. They do, Karen. I do not train them.
Hmm,
They are not allowed in my office. You have to be licensed in order to get trained in my office.
there we
Okay,
go.
that's it for me.
Do we have any more? That
I
was
have a
amazing,
question.
Sonia. Thank you so much. You're
Oh, and Dr.
doing
Rivkin said they need to take a cadaver course. Absolutely. My nurses have to have a cadaver course every 3 years, and they cannot go to the same person. I have a whole list. Dr. Rivkin, you and Dr. Sadat are on there. I've got a whole list that my injectors. Yes. Oh, yes. This is a good list. Dr. Rivkin gave y'all a
which,
really good list.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Rivkin, if you don't mind actually going through it, because I also just saw it. There's so much on the chat going on right now. Thank you
Oh,
so much,
sure.
Sonia, for catching that.
Yeah, no, so we run, Sadat and I run a course, a cadaver course in Beverly Hills every year. It's called Expert Symposium, and we have, nice thing about it is that it's a hands-on cadaver course with us, Steve Yolen, and Jonathan Sykes, who, these guys have been around forever. They're fantastic teachers. They're extremely knowledgeable. It's a whole, and like most conferences where people kind of pop in, do their lecture, and pop out. Everybody's there all day long with the cadavers, with the demonstrations and all that kind of stuff. So we find it to be very effective, and it's a small group course. There's not, I think it's a max of like 50 people or something. So it's
Mhm.
pretty it's concentrated, and you're there for like 8 hours. And so there, so yeah, so if anybody interested in that, go ahead and DM me. I'm happy to, and well, I'll route you to Logan, who will figure it out. And then the other thing is in terms of with education, I think cadaver courses are super important. And I think video is also super important. And I think I Moxie has a very good platform for with videos, and also Robin. Oh my God. Oh, I'm such a bad friend. Like when you need it, you blank on the name. Robin Sipperstein. Robin Sipperstein just put together a platform called Injector 360, which is really, really good. She's an absolute angel, and she's doing it out of the goodness of her heart. I have a bunch of my videos up there. Other people have videos up there that you can really go through. So I think really an important thing to avail yourself of
What a
when you're looking for that kind of knowledge and education.
amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Rivkin, and
Sure.
really appreciate that. What a beautiful moment that was, right? Very organic. Sonia came in with the training checklist, and then of course we got a lot of people really interested in that matter, and then Dr. Rivkin nailed the coffin on the head over there. Right. So, Jay, if you were advising a traditional med spa owner who wants to stay in the brick and mortar model, but borrow some of the best ideas from the cloud, um, I know we kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but do you have any more specific changes that you would like to tell them to implement first, besides the renting out the spare room?
I mean, first of all, the title of this our discussion is like, an 18-month window.
That's
I
right.
think any business that waits 18 months to make a change is in trouble. You don't have 18 months, you don't have 12 months. I'd argue that you don't even have 6 months. So you need to tackle all those issues now. Um, and I do want to make a point to Sonia about the training because, yes, it is very, very important. And, we offer, the Cloud Med Spa does offer mentorship, training. Um, I have 5 nurse practitioners that in the state of Illinois, when you have full practice authority, you can become provide oversight for the NPs and the RNs. And I've got 5 nurse practitioners that have that PA that are clinical directors. So the community is large, it's robust, it's experienced. When I first started, yes, many of the nurses that joined our practice were right out of a class, right? They spent $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a training class, and then they couldn't get a job because everyone was looking for 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience. And really, when someone says, I want 3, 4 years of experience, it's not really the talent of the injector. What they're looking for is a client list. Right. I want someone with 5 years of experience because they're going to come over with, 500 patient list. That's the real reason why these med spas ask, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but in my opinion, I think that's the big reason why they ask for the, multi-years of experience. But now my business has pivoted. And so now most of the nurses that are coming to my practice are experienced, 7, 8, 10 years of injecting experience. One of them was billing over $1 million from the practice they came from. And so obviously that practice got a big hole. And, now that nurse is seeing her patients, even if it's 50% of that. I mean, imagine $500,000 worth of revenue. And now there's no split with me with the model. So for me, I would say a medical spa owner, should look at other revenue streams, and it doesn't have to be from his own, employees, his own injectors. Instead of having 3, 4, 5, why not have 30, 40, 50 people running through your practice, using your rooms, using your devices? So if you spend $100,000 on a CO2 laser, instead of having to heavily discount a procedure to get someone in the chair to utilize that machine, how about spreading those treatments across 40, 50, practitioners that are, and some of them, like 40 or 50, not everyone wants to learn a laser. Every injector is free to choose what service they want to put into their practice. And so half of them want to learn laser. I bring the laser representative. And now, as a med spa owner, instead of having 3, 4 people using that machine, you got 20 people, right? I too offer cadaver classes, and we have a company that we use here in Chicago. We call it a cadaver pop-up lab. It's 4 hours and it's only 10 people. Okay, the pathologist goes through the layers and whatever he does, and then I've got a senior nurse that is actually reviewing all the injection points with dye. And guess what? My cost is $895. So in my world, I don't try to charge or make money off training. I use training as a tool to get my nurses more experience, more confident, and be able to provide additional lines of service in their practice. And therefore, they end up using the rooms more, devices more, and buying more product from me. So I think the industry's changing. So you can either be, Netflix, or you can be Blockbuster. You can sit with, blinds and say, no, it's not changing. I just need to pay my injector a little bit more. I think it's more about empowering the injector to have a little bit more control over their time, their schedule, their patients, their treatments, and of course their money. And so in our model, the practitioner, they get to charge whatever they want. They make their own pricing, their own specials, their own promotions. To me, it doesn't matter, So anyhow, I get kind of passionate because I've seen the change, and obviously, when you have 31 nurses in less than, it's been 2 years and 2 months that I've been open.
Right. Really appreciate that, Jay. And of course, can knock that passion because it's definitely one of a very innovative perspectives we've had on the panel. And it got to come from you, right? You're coming from a very tech driven background. and this is how you approach aesthetics, and it's really, really interesting.
And
Um,
there's not a huge buy-in. It's very inexpensive for both the Cloud Med Spa owner as well as the nurse who wants to go independent. There are other platforms that do what we do, but very different. Some of them charge $4,000 or $5,000 up front. We provide all that with no upfront cost, and there's no contract. They can come in,
right.
try 2, 3, 4 months. If it doesn't work out, we shake hands, we part ways. And guess what? Any nurse, any patients that they cultivate during that 2, 3 month period, they're not mine. They don't belong to me. They belong to the nurse. So they're
Mm,
free to take them and go on their way.
right. Now, we will be moving into a very interesting segment here. Um, Now we are opening the floor for a live audience Q&A. There are two ways to participate. You can raise your hand if you would like to ask your question live. I'll unmute you there, or you can type your question into the Q&A box. And oh yeah, if you prefer to ask anonymously, that is also completely fine as well. That function is available when you are giving a question in the Q&A box. Now, all I ask is when you do write out your question, if you can include your role in the practice, that'll be great because it'll help us answer your questions in a much more meaningful manner. Also, just want to make a quick note here. This is not the end of the webinar, of course. Depending on how many questions we're going to get, we do have a few more questions for our panelists before we round this out. But I do have a couple of questions that I would like to start off over here with from our registrants of the event. Let's see over here. Okay. Okay, this one is interesting. We got a lead injector from Texas. I think this is going to be a great one for Sonia. They're asking, I feel like a lot of practices are adding services faster than they're training people properly. Okay. Where do you draw the line between growing the menu and making sure everyone is actually safe and consistent?
I love this question. Okay. So my rule in my office is you can only be good at three things at a time. Three. And men, maybe one, like at a time. Y'all aren't good multitaskers. I love y'all though. Okay. So I literally will not let anybody do more than three things in my office. If you are not an expert in what you are doing, I do not want you touching our patients because it's not going to end up going well, right? And why would we want to do that to our patients anyway? So yeah, three things. Pick them and go with them.
Okay, there we go. Nice and sweet. Does anyone else want to add on to that? Because this is kind of a free for all. Dr. Rivkin, do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it's a really good question, and I think it's something that is, and then I mean, fundamentally it goes to the heart of the kind of issue within our field, which is the conflict of interest between money and patient care, you know? And so, and it's a tough conflict of interest because it's a business, but it's also, but we're also seeing patients, and we also have to be, very safe and abide by very strict standards of safety and expertise. And I think Sonia's got that's a great, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
great rule. So because frankly, when people ask me where should I go to get a facelift, or where should I go to get a rhinoplasty? My advice has been the same for 20 years. I say you go to the person who does the procedure that you're thinking about doing every single day, right? That you're the expert in, not the expert in everything. Nobody can be the expert in everything, but the expert in that particular procedure. And so that's what I want to have in my office as well. I have the people that do, lasers more often, people that do biostimulators more often, and so we funnel people into these various kind of little sub expertise areas of sub expertise. And I think that's really quite important. And
Okay.
that's, yeah, but I make sure, but you make sure that you have, and the other thing about it is you create a culture, right? Within
Mm.
your practice or within your office or within your clinic, you create a culture where people are able to express discomfort and not feel like somebody's going to look down on them, right? So if I have bring in new technology and somebody says, I'm not, hey, I'm not comfortable with this part of it, or I don't know about this. I'm not going to, I'm not going to call them a loser or something. I'm going to be,
Mhm.
we need to make sure that people are comfortable. And if they need to get more training, to get more training. And so I always know that before I get anything, any kind of technology, I need to
Mhm.
know absolutely where that training is going to come from and who's going to do that training and whether that person's going to be any good, because that
Okay.
is absolutely critical.
Wow. Really appreciate that, Dr. Rivkin and Sonia as well. What a great framework there. And of course, the why behind that thinking as well. Now, Britt has asked us here in the Q&A button, how do you transition an office from where everyone does everything to building experts? Hmm. Who wants to go try this first? Okay,
Well,
Sonia.
I think it happens organically if you let it,
Mhm.
right? So I've got one nurse that took to threads like a duck in water. She's fabulous. I mean, she really is fantastic. The other one, she's not interested. Do you think I'm really going to make her put threads in patients' faces? Absolutely not. So I
Mhm.
think if you just organically it's like when you have kids and you're letting them try all the different sports, they're going to hone in on a couple of different sports that they really, really like. So you may put
Right.
them in swim class and, they sink to the bottom, but they're going to hit a home run. Okay, that's great, baby. We're playing baseball, right? So I think that's how you have to treat your staff. I mean, I don't mean to call them children. I'm just saying
Oh,
you
yeah.
need to give them opportunities and find out what they're good at. And then don't
They're
be
like your,
mad at them. Don't be mad at them when they're not good at something. Just because you have
mm,
something in your office that needs to get sold, but they're not good at it, I mean, that's not their fault,
It's on
or
you.
or if they're not passionate about it. I like people when they're passionate about what they're doing. So,
check.
yeah.
It's the only way. It's the only way. And that's an interesting point, is that I gauge that before I buy something. I'll never gonna buy something without getting these guys into the room, without having these guys knowing that these guys are passionate
Mhm.
about the technology that I'm about to buy. I would,
Okay.
because
Even
otherwise
if you are passionate about
it
that.
doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, I am one factor, but I am not, I don't think I'm the most important factor. The most important
Mm.
factor is whether they are fired up about it. Otherwise,
Yeah, buy
Does
buy
nothing's gonna
skincare. Yeah, buy skincare that your esthetician doesn't like. See how it goes.
happen.
yeah,
Exactly.
It's gonna
go.
Couldn't
sit,
agree
it's gonna
more
sit on
with
the
either one
shelf.
of you. I mean, this is when how things are successful is literally the providers are super passionate about the device, the
Yeah,
skincare product. I
yeah.
mean, look at like I had a client who, they were selling cool sculpting like crazy. They get an M Sculpt Neo, burn their first patient, never sell it again, never sell it again, and continue to sell cool sculpting. Like it's not always about what's best in the technology. It really is the provider loves it. They get good results from their patients and they buy into it. They are the ones selling it. So you guys are preaching the gospel. I think that's so important to really understand when you're making big, big financial decisions in your practice like that.
Yeah.
Check. I do have a question from our registrants, Amanda Toronto, practice manager. Um, our revenue is technically up, but it doesn't feel like the business is healthier. What numbers should we be actually looking to know if we are growing the right way? Jessica, I'm curious to hear your answer on this.
I mean, there's so many questions. I mean, there's so many questions I would have for her, obviously, because
Okay.
I'm always curious and humble when I have those conversations, right? I need to know more to be able to be able to help. But if
Mm.
your revenue is growing, but you feel like you're not have as
Feel.
much money at the end of the month, right, in your bank
Mm.
account, of course, that's just a symptom of not really understanding where the money's going. That's all that is. So essentially your revenue could be growing because you're doing a lot of meta ads, a lot of patient acquisition, first time incentive ads. And so we might be doing a lot of services. We feel really busy, of course, right? And, the transactional revenue might be high, but our profit margins are, maybe not even profitable. for the service or the treatments that we're doing. This happens a lot in memberships. We create these membership plans because everybody tells us we have to have a membership, but we're just discounting like crazy. And so we're always sort of like, curious of why aren't we making any more money? We have all this revenue, but why is our profit margin only 3 or 4%? And so it just kind of goes back to, I can't remember her name, but it just really goes back to really understanding your numbers. I really, really encourage you. It will bring you so much clarity in the business. And by the way, your accountant going into your QuickBooks every single month is not understanding your financial data. All they do is kind of sort your expenses so that it can go into a P&L, which is a snapshot of the business. It does not tell you enough. I have been doing this for over 12 years. All I do is financial stuff for my clients, and then we deal with constraints. But that's what allows me to find the constraints. It is the roadmap to be able to seek more to understand. And so anytime you have those, I just really, really encourage that you have someone who A, understands financials, and B, understands the mechanics of this business, because you have to be able to really uncover what's happening and how to move forward.
All right. So Amanda, we really do hope that you take a newfound look at your financials, really, and start there. And of course, I know it's not easy. That P&L sheet, I mean,
know.
that's Jessica's, bread and butter right there. So talk to an expert. We've dropped, well, if you're seeing this on a replay, we'll definitely circle back with the emails and the LinkedIn's of our panelists. So have a chat with Jessica, see how it goes. Right. Let's see. We had one more question that I would like to get. Okay, we had a few more. Okay, let's answer these two questions and we will keep it moving. Britt asks yet another question. How would you transition patients from one staff member to another? Now, I'm curious to hear the other side of this. How should we do this? Yeah, Sonia, since you mentioned it earlier on, I'm curious as to how would you transition patients from one staff member to another?
So I have been in my area for over 18 years and very, very loyal patient database. And I was so worried about this when I decided to cut down my days. So I don't suggest that anybody inject more than 3 days a week if you have a full schedule. It will shorten your career. And the psychology that we deal with in a day is enough to just, I don't know, make anybody just drink themselves into a new liver. So
Mhm.
What I did was when I got new injectors, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to find a way to get my patients, over to those other injectors. And so I just gave up a day. They just literally could not schedule. And the staff was trained to credential the new injectors and let them know that I had trained them myself, that I get on their table. I trust them. If Sonia's gonna let them put a needle in their face, why would you not let them put a needle in your face? And what I've learned is they love us. They absolutely adore us. They will be as loyal as they can until you're not available. And I tell everybody, I joke, there's going to be so many beautiful women at my funeral, and they're going to be all crying, but not, not ugly crying. It's going to be a pretty cry. And they're all going to be on their phone, and on their phone is going to be like Botox near me, right? Because they love me, but I can no longer give them what they need. And so they're on to the next one, right? So I just tell everybody, if you just will do it that way, credential them, train them, let them know that you're no longer, or let them know you're available, but they're going to have to wait. Well, they're going to say, I don't want to wait. I need it right now. My sister's brother's wedding is next week and I need it next week. And they're going to go ahead and book with that other injector. And they might say, I'm only going to go to her once and then I'm going to go back to Sonia. And then they're going to like that injector and they're going to be
That's
able to
right.
get into her easier. And it's going to work out. So that's how we did it in our office. Does anybody else have has anybody else done it a different way?
Sonia, do you discount for the new provider?
Only if they're really green.
Mm.
Only if they're green. If they're not
And they
green,
need like the
absolutely
reps.
not. Yeah, if they're like 1 year in. Like I've got a baby nurse right now and her only injection day is on Friday and we do discount her. Not by much, because she's still trained very well. But
Yeah.
I don't. It's okay to discount, but just don't make a habit of it, and only if they're super green. If they are an
Right.
experienced injector, you're paying for their hands, you're paying for their brain. You're not paying for the product,
Mm.
in my opinion.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
Check. Check. Um, Now, one final last question from Karen here. I'm so intimidated by memberships. I honestly don't know how to do it. What do we have to say to Karen here? Um,
I'm gonna say one thing.
hmm.
I'll keep it short because I could go on a
Yeah,
little bit about
yeah.
memberships. One thing I just want to kind of note about memberships is memberships do two things, right? Of course, ideally they do reoccurring revenue, right? And that is very attractive to lots of
Yeah.
reasons in a business. Either to a solo owner, to someone acquiring it, lots of different things. So that would be one thing. But what I really like about a membership that's done well, and of course that it's profitable the way every single month is profitable if you're going to do a membership. There's no other way to do it, is that it actually allows you to cross-sell to something else somebody hasn't tried. That is the real value of it. So you get them in because they're a neurotoxin, or they're maybe still on that, chemical peels and hydrofacials, and they're still in that sort of baby services. And it gives you the opportunity to build a relationship, have a good experience month after month, then to be able to say, hey, you know what you actually need? You know what actually I think could benefit you? You find their problems, provide the solution, and now they're in this ability where you can cross sell to something else. That's why I
Mhm.
personally really like a well developed membership, to do that, to allow for that. The rest of it is, to me, is a little bit of, I don't know, I think a little bit of marketing gimmick and all these other things, because the reality is it needs to be profitable, right? And then, my idea is I'm trying to obviously bring someone in from one service to try other services that they actually probably potentially need and just don't know that they need yet.
Jay, I'm actually curious about your perspective on this with regards to memberships. Do you do memberships, Jay?
So we're the rental model, so I don't get involved with patients. I'm not involved with pricing. Each
Okay.
individual nurse that runs their solo practice handles that piece. I do know that many of them have memberships, but that's strictly up to them. Now,
Hmm.
my 31 nurses that currently are part of my Cloud Med Spa, they pay me a monthly membership fee. Every month
Hmm.
they pay me just to be part of the practice. Now,
Hmm.
I mean, I do use a portion of that to keep the rooms, fully stocked, supplied, sharps, gloves, syringes, everything that they need basically to come in, do their treatments, and then walk out. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Right. So you are a fan of memberships.
I mean, yes, I think so. I mean, you want stickiness, you want your patients. I mean, I do coach a lot of my nurses because I think I heard this somewhere on the call this evening
Yeah.
that, most of these nurses are, they're providers and they're not very business savvy. Although I'll argue that the ones that come to me are hungry and they're ready to do something on their own. And, having worked at a med spa and made their med spa owner rich, they now know that they can do it themselves. And so they
Hmm.
come hungry and they're ready to work hard and they're ready to work for themselves. And so I do see them, very eager to, price properly, to tackle all the issues that they were encountering at a, med spa, but now having the
Right.
ability to make those decisions on their own. And the ones that come, I mean, yes, I have several that have not been able to make it and they've fallen off, because not everyone can find patients. That's the
Oh
hard
yeah.
part. That's the secret sauce, right? So I tell
Secrets.
everyone you start with friends, family, social circle, but then you build from there. And like I said
Right.
earlier, now the bulk of the nurses that are coming to work with us are experienced nurses that come with a book of business. They hit the ground running and they're seeing patients and they're busy. They're busy.
There we go. Really appreciate that. Now, just to wrap things off over here with this question, I really want to get Sonia's perspective here because I feel like we are answered the intimidated by the membership. Now you, Karen, now you know why memberships are great, but I honestly don't know how to do it. I honestly don't know how to do it. Sonia, how would you address
It
concerns
was
such
it
as that?
Karen? Karen? Was it Karen?
Karen, yeah.
Karen. So Karen, we researched this for years. It was so hard. There's so many different ways that you could go about this. But right now, people are watching their dollars, and so they are looking for value, but you also don't want it to hurt your practice. And my patients were already really loyal. So this was really hard for me to do, but I really did it because of all the other people that are in my office, not because of me. So we have two different memberships. We have one for the functional medicine side, and then we have one for the aesthetic side. They can go two different routes. They can do $99 a month, and that money is banked. So, meaning in 4 months, when they come back for their neurotoxin, they're going to already have $400 waiting for them to use for their treatments. They love that. Okay. Absolutely adore it. And then they get 5% off of all of their aesthetic treatments on that membership. Then there's a $199 a month. And once again, it's a beauty bank. So that money is just sitting there waiting for them to use when they get there. And then they get 10% off of all of their aesthetic services. So that is a way, as Jessica said, for us to push them into the laser room, push them into the retail skincare room, push them into the aesthetic room, because now they have I'm telling you, it's like girl math, okay? We girls are really bad at math when we have, well, Jessica's not bad at math, but maybe the rest of us. So, when we have $400 already there, that's free money. It's free money in a girl's head. Okay. So if she's already got $400 and her treatment was $400, and now you ask her if she wants skincare today, oh, she's got another $200 just in her.
Mm-mm.
It's magic. It's just magic money.
Sonia, the first conversation you're having with your client, to introduce this
Yeah.
membership plan, how does that go?
Now, if it's a brand new patient, I do offer
Mm.
the membership to them, but I just say, you need to try us out first. Come
Okay.
to us. I really like cooling off periods, so I'll do a consultation. We may do some neurotoxin that day, but we won't do anything else that day. I want them to go home, think about what I said, have a cooling off period, really discuss, think about because I give them a 3-year treatment plan in their first consultation. And then they can come back and do the rest of it. And they love that. Women love a to-do list, right? So I just offer the membership to them. And when you tell them that they can't sign up for something the first time, it's like they want it even more. It's like you just told them they can't have it, and they're just like, no, I want it. And I'm like, you can't have it yet. You don't know us yet. You don't even know if you like us. I'm going to lock you into this for a year. And so usually the next time they come in, they're like, I want that membership.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Sonia, you probably are perhaps the most unintentional funny person
Oh,
I
yeah, it's unintentional, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, must it's just amazing. Fantastic explanation there and really appreciate it. And Karen also said awesome, love it with a couple of hearts over here. So thank you very much, Sonia. All right. Real quickly, Sonia, Haley just asked, you have your injectors only injecting 3 days a week. What do they do the other time?
Well, one of them also does functional medicine. So she does work 5 days a week, but 3 of that is injecting, 2 of that is functional medicine. Now, one of them, she does work 5 days a week, but she also runs our Dallas office. So she's doing some business in between. So really, and what I mean is 3 full days, you guys. So 3 full days. If you're injecting for 3 full days, that's enough. That's enough for your
Mhm.
body, and that's enough for your brain. I promise you, you cannot. You may be able to do 5 days in your 20s and in your 30s, but wait until you get in your 50s, like me. It hurts. Okay, you're gonna hurt yourself. So what we do is we tell injectors you can work 5 days a week, and you can. Once you can consolidate your days, you need to consolidate your days. And who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to work 3 days and make the same that they made in 5 days?
Sure.
Work smarter, not harder.
That's
Absolutely.
my
And your
world.
health. Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Jessica said
I was just
that's
agreeing.
Jay's
That's
world. Yeah.
agreeing. I was just agreeing that,
Mhm.
working, 2 days, 3 days a week in a Cloud Med Spa where there's no split with the medical spa you're not just doubling your income, you're more than doubling, and therefore you can cut down your hours and have better work-life balance, and all that stuff with time with family, kids, soccer, and all that stuff. It's just another selling point of our practice and what we offer. um,
Amazing. Really appreciate that, Jay. And Sonia, I mean, this has been an amazing conversation and answering our registrants and attendees' questions. That's amazing. Now, before we begin the wrap up, I do have a question for Dr. Rivkin here. Doctor, you lecture at scientific conferences globally. What trends from the international markets, Europe, Asia, South America, do you believe will land in US aesthetic practices within the next 18 months? And how should owners really get ahead of them?
Um,
We need the secret
That's an
sauce.
interesting, well, I mean, it's a complex question, because if you think of it just as like what are people doing that's very popular abroad, and that that's certainly something that's going to translate. Well, they're injecting growth factors, they're injecting PDRN and those kinds of things, and they're doing more than we are with regenerative technology.
Mm,
Are we going to be able to inject growth factors? We may. There's studies ongoing,
mm,
and I think Acorn's doing a study that's interesting. I think there's efforts, but
mm,
I can tell you that the FDA is going to be very hesitant about doing this kind of thing. PDRN, off-the-shelf PDRN to be injected. I think they're going to be. I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna if that's gonna work or not. PDGF also not very. It's unclear. I think that. First of all, I think the one thing that is, in terms of trends, in terms of what's going to happen in the future, I think my message to people out there is don't be this whole thing about fillers being the devil is just gonna passing trend. Fillers are an excellent tool. They're almost an ideal medication. They do what it's supposed to do. They do it for a
mm,
specific period of time. They don't affect any other part of the body. They're gone within a certain period of time, whether that's longer or shorter. Like, if it's longer, bonus. And they're dissolvable. I mean, they're really good tools. So all this
mm,
crap that is out there on social media about fillers is, I think, going to fade over some time. And I think that the surgeons out there that are pushing some of it are going to I don't think that they're going to continue to do that for very long, because they're going to taste that it's cutting. They're going to realize that it's cutting down on their referrals. Because who the hell is going to refer to a surgeon that trashes fillers?
mm,
from a injector community. So I think
mm.
that people shouldn't give up on fillers. They're still an excellent tool that we're going to be using for a long time in the future. But I think that it's hard to say. I really don't see that much revolutionary technology out there that we don't have. I mean, there's more fillers, there's more toxins, there's different kinds of fillers and all that kind of stuff. There's fillers that are kind of there are fillers from that are stimulate, call it elastin, that are interesting. There's fillers that are made of other things besides hyaluronic acid that are
Mm.
potentially interesting, but they're still very, very new. So nothing imminent that I see that is going to be a deal breaker, not a deal breaker, a game changer for all of us.
Okay. Okay. Really appreciate that. Because as you mentioned, the bioregenerative medicine, although it might be leading the frontiers, due to FDA regulations, it might not be as effective in the US market. But fillers, as you were saying that, what I was thinking is, well, perhaps it's the type of outcomes that are really changing, right? Because like that Hollywood look,
Yeah, yeah.
that overly, yeah, bit of a Miami look, might be the one that's kind of going out from the trend, and in comes the more
Yeah.
natural,
Yeah, if I don't
right?
see any If I don't see another patient with Mar-a-Lago face, I'll be very happy.
Right on. With that, then let's start the final key takeaway around here. I do want to get a quick golden nugget, from each one of y'all, for future-proofing the aesthetic practice over the next 18 months. This is not necessarily to say that we are going to make the decision 18 months, like end of the 18 months. It's to make the decision now so that 18 months over, we'll be in good shape. So let's start us off with Sonia. What's the golden rule for future-proofing your aesthetic practice?
So I was hoping somebody else would bring it up, but nobody did, so I'm going to.
Yes.
Functional medicine is, if you do not have functional medicine in your practice right now, or if you do not have a good referral source for function, it doesn't have to be in your practice. It was not in my practice for years. I decided that because I like to be a master of all things, and I don't like to be a jack of all trades. I like to be a master of certain things. And so it's really hard to be really good at injectables and then really good at functional medicine. It's just too hard. There's too much you have to know. So the recession really taught me that we need to bring functional medicine into our practice, and weight management, peptides. I'm talking about all of it, guys. Now that I am in my later years, I have learned that if we don't make them pretty on the inside, it's really hard to make them pretty on the outside. I promise you. If you will optimize a female or a male's hormones, and get them their peptides and control their weight, all of the aesthetic procedures that you do to them are going to be so much better. Not only are they going to be happier, but you're going to be happier. And so is your, practice's wallet. And Jessica can maybe attest to that.
Okay. Well, functional medicine it is. Thank you very much, Sonia, for that great reminder. And Jessica, over to you next.
Yeah,
What's
I
the
mean,
golden?
I'll echo that. I love that you brought that up. It's definitely, I think, obviously the biggest trending, in terms of new segments in our industry. Everybody knows that. I would say like how you guys incorporate into your business, just be aware of sort of, again, what you're bringing in, who you have doing it, what state you're in, all those kinds of things. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to go into that. But two things I would say as you guys go into the next 18 months, I say this all the time, but be humble, be curious, be curious that you want to learn more, you want to seek more answers. AI is coming to the mix, everyone's coming at you with every AI kind of tool. And just, again, be sort of, curious about it, want to learn more, and be humble enough to know that you probably don't know everything. I am the first one to say I have no idea what's in, Jupiter. I don't know. I mean, I've been getting it for like 20 years. I don't know what's in it. I don't know how to use it. I mean, I look to you guys. I just come, you guys tell me what I need. And so I just think it's be humble, be curious as we go into this next stage. And again, always plan for the future. Always think about where you want to be 3 years from now, because I promise I have so many conversations with people that, would like to do things today. And the reality is we should have planned that 3 to 5 years ago. And so think about what you want to do in the future, because what you do today will absolutely impact how your practice will be in a ready position for whatever you want to do in the future. So those are my quick tidbits or key takeaways.
Wonderful. Be curious and be humble. Yeah, it's like the golden rule, but we sometimes when we are down in the tunnel, it's a bit difficult to see this as the
Definitely,
light.
definitely.
So it's
Yeah.
always a great reminder. Jay, how about you, sir? What's your golden rule for us? Jay?
I think that you have to realize that, I mean, this industry is changing, um, and it grew up very fast. And I mean, it's just changing. So you can't kind of close your eyes to it. So if you're a med spa owner, embrace that. You can become, let's say, an Airbnb and be able to monetize one of your most expensive, expenses, your real estate, your rent, your mortgage, and be able to fill rooms up with eager uh, aesthetic practitioners that want to go on their own and will become a community in your practice, using your
Mhm.
space, your devices, getting training from you. And I think you need to keep that as a viable option to continue your growth pattern. And then on the other side, if you're a nurse, PA, RN looking to go out on your own, you can do it. And there are platforms like ours and others that give you the ability to plug into an existing infrastructure where you don't have to build out your own. You have to sign a lease. You don't have to put your family at risk. You can simply begin to take your client list that you have worked years at, maintaining, and you've earned it. Why not do it on your own? And so there's two sides of the fence that our platform addresses: owners of the med spa and injectors that want to go out on their own and do something other
Mm.
than work for someone else.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Jay. I mean, yeah, perhaps it might be instead of just starting up your own practice, test it out with Jay. I
Well,
don't
and
know
I'll
if
say
there are
this, I
many.
know it's kind of new and everyone's kind of trying to
Exactly.
figure out what I'm saying. Can it work? Does it work? And I will say this, in the 2.5 years that I've been involved with Cloud Med Spas, we've gone from 12 locations to almost 400 locations. We signed
Okay.
an agreement with Salon Lofts. So now the Salon Lofts is working with us and providing, the solopreneurs, space.
Hmm.
There's over 1,000 nurses on our platform. And right now we're self-funded. We're not backed by any PE. We have them knocking on our door, but we've decided not to go that route just yet because we are growing organically, and it's
Right.
and as people realize, that there are other options, then the platform speaks for itself. And obviously,
Of
anyone who's
course.
interested, I'm happy to set up a call and jump on it because the cost to get in is nothing practically.
Amazing.
So anyhow,
Amazing.
I
Thank you so
appreciate the
much, Jay.
time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing, so selflessly with our community. And it's really appreciated. Now, Dr. Rivkin, round it off. What's our golden rule?
I
Uh,
think so. To my mind, first of all, I think you need to I think you need to get somebody like Jessica involved in your practice. If it's not you, it needs to be somebody who has some understanding of business because that's not obvious. So I think if you can't, if and most providers don't because that's not what we learn in school. And so if you don't, get somebody who does. So know
mm,
yourself and know when you need help. And I think that's important. I think the other thing is understand what the core of your business is. And the core, for most of us, the core of our business is patient care and the trust that patients have with us. And so don't lose sight of that as you pursue, other, shiny technologies or, opportunities or kinds of like, what you, get into like the business aspect of it. Understand that take cultivating the core is important, and that's your knowledge, that your patients come first, that patients trust you not only to have their best interest in mind but also to be knowledgeable about what's the treatments that you offer or you could offer. So you just keep that in mind as you pursue and grow, and tend to your growth with courses, with uh, video learning and all that kind of stuff.
course. Thank you very much, Dr. Ripkin. What a wonderful way to wrap this up here. All right. Uh, yeah. If you don't know numbers, get someone that does. And on that very similar note, I do want to give a reminder to everyone on the call. Ekwa Marketing's complimentary one-on-one strategy meeting is available for you. They'll be answering the only question that matters. When someone in your city searches for that Botox near me or Morpheus 8 cost, perhaps even cool sculpting, are you the practice that's found, trusted, and chosen? You'll get a live audit and a treatment level plan to drive qualified consults and fast. So scan the QR code or use the chat in the link. Limited spots because of the prep. There's no obligation. Grab your time now and make sure that you show up when patients search for the treatments you offer. Right. And we are at the end here. This has been an excellent conversation. I would like to extend my deep gratitude to Sonia, Jay, Jessica, and of course, Dr. Rivkin for joining us. And of course, to everyone who joined us, thank you so much for investing this time in your practice's success. As you exit this webinar, a quick 30-second feedback survey will pop up on a new browser tab. Please, take that time to let us know how we did so that we can make these panels even more better for you in the future. With that being said, I'm Don Adisha. It has been my pleasure hosting this session for Business of Aesthetics. We'll see you on the next one. Take care and good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.